also after a high-speed taxi run at 2012 Cold War Jets Day, Bruntingthorpe. Production aircraft were powered by various models of the Avon engine. This power plant was initially rated as capable of generating 11,250 lbf, 50.0 kN, of dry thrust, but when employing the 4-stage afterburner this increased to a maximum thrust of 14,430 lbf, 64.2 kN. Later models of the Avon featured, in addition to increased thrust, a full variable reheat arrangement. A special heat-reflecting paint containing gold was used to protect the aircraft's structure from the hot engine casing, which could reach temperatures of 600 degrees Celsius, 1000 degrees Fahrenheit. Under optimum conditions, a well-equipped maintenance facility took 4 hours to perform an engine change, so specialized ground test rigs were developed to speed up maintenance and remove the need to perform a full ground run of the engine after some maintenance tasks. The stacked engine configuration complicated maintenance work, and the leakage of fluid from the upper engine was a recurring fire hazard. The fire risk was reduced, but not eliminated, following remedial work during development. For removal, the lower number 1 engine was removed from below the aircraft, after removal of the ventral tank and lower fuselage access panels, by lowering the engine down, while the upper number 2 engine was lifted out from above via removable sections in the fuselage top. The fuselage was tightly packed, leaving no room for fuel tankage or main landing gear. While the notched delta wing lacked the volume of a standard delta wing, each wing contained a fairly conventional 3-section main fuel tank and leading edge tank, holding 312 imp gal, 1420 L. The wing flaps also each contained a 33 imp gal, 150 L, fuel tank, and an additional 5 imp gal, 23 L, was contained in a fuel recuperator, bringing the aircraft's total internal fuel capacity to 700 imp gal, 3,200 L. The main landing gear was sandwiched outboard of the main tanks and aft of the leading edge tanks, with the flap fuel tanks behind. The long main gear legs retracted toward the wingtip, necessitating an exceptionally thin main tire inflated to the high pressure of 333/50 psi. 2324 bar, 2,300 2,400 kpa. On landing, the number 1 engine was usually shut down when taxiing to save brake wear, as keeping both engines running at idle power was still sufficient to propel the Lightning to 80 miles per hour if brakes were not used. Dunlop Maxere anti-lock brakes were fitted. The Lightning fuel capacity was increased with a conformal ventral fuel tank. A rocket engine pack containing a Napier double Scorpion engine and 200 imp gal, 910 L, of high-test peroxide, HTP, to drive the rocket turbo pump, and act as an oxidizer, was planned to be located in place of the ventral tank and would boost performance if non-afterburning engines were fitted. Fuel for the rocket would come from the aircraft fuel supply. The rocket engine option was cancelled in 1958 when it was established that performance with afterburning Avon engines was acceptable. The ventral store was routinely used as an extra fuel tank, holding 247 imp gal, 1120 L, of usable fuel. On later variants of the Lightning, a ventral weapons pack could be installed to equip the aircraft alternatively with different armaments, including missiles, rockets, and cannons. Avionics and Systems, edit. Early versions of the Lightning were equipped with the for-anti-developed AI.23 monopulse radar, which was contained right at the front of the fuselage within an inlet cone at the center of the engine intake. Radar information was displayed on an early head-up display and managed by onboard computers. The AI.23 supported several operational modes, which included autonomous search, automatic target tracking, and ranging for all weapons. The pilot attack sight provided gyroscopically derived lead angle and backup stereometric ranging for gun firing. The radar and gun sight were collectively designated the Air Pass, for airborne interception radar and pilot attack sight system. The radar was successively upgraded with the introduction of more capable Lightning variants, such as to provide guidance for the Red Top missile. F.6 Cockpit. The cockpit of the Lightning was designed to meet the RAF's ON 946 specification for tactical air navigation technology, and thus featured an integrated flight instrument display arrangement, an Elliott Bros, London, limited autopilot, a master reference gyroscopic reader, an auto-attack system, and an instrument landing system. Despite initial skepticism of the aircraft's centralized detection and warning system, the system proved its merits during the development program and was redeveloped for greater reliability. Communications included UHF and VHF radios and a data link. Unlike the previous generation of aircraft which used gaseous oxygen for life support, the Lightning employed liquid oxygen-based apparatus for the pilot. Cockpit pressurization and conditioning was maintained through tappings from the engine compressors. Electricity was provided via a bleed air-driven turbine housed in the rear fuselage, which drove an AC alternator and DC generator. This approach was unusual, since most aircraft used drive shaft-driven generators forward/alternators for electrical energy. A 28V DC battery provided emergency backup power. Aviation author Kev Darling stated of the Lightning, "Never before had a fighter been so dependent upon electronics." Each engine was equipped with a pair of hydraulic pumps, one of which powered the flight control systems and the other power for the undercarriage, flaps, and air brakes. Switchable hydraulic circuits were used for redundancy in the event of a leak or other failure. A combination of dual-lock Maxere anti-skid brakes on the main wheels and a Nervin air chute braking parachute slowed the aircraft during landing. A tailhook was also fitted. Accumulators on the wheel brakes performed as backups to the hydraulics, providing minimal braking. Above a certain airspeed a stopped engine would windmill, that is, continue to be rotated by air flowing through it in a similar manner to a ram air turbine, sufficient to generate adequate hydraulic power for the powered controls during flight. Toward the end of its service, the Lightning was increasingly outclassed by newer fighters, mainly due to avionics and armament obsolescence. The radar had a limited range and no track while scanning capability, and it could detect targets only in a narrow, 40 degrees, arc. While an automatic collision course attack system was developed and successfully demonstrated by English Electric, it was not adopted due to cost concerns. Plans were mooted to supplement or replace the obsolete Red Top and Firestreak missiles with modern AIM-9L Sidewinder missiles to help rectify some of the obsolescence, but these ambitions were not realized due to lack of funding. An alternative to the modernization of existing aircraft would have been the development of more advanced variants. A proposed variable sweep-wing Lightning would have likely involved the adoption of a new power plant and radar and was believed by BAC to significantly increase performance, but ultimately was not pursued. Climb performance, edit. Lightning was designed as an interceptor fighter. As such, it has probably the fastest rate of climb of any combat aircraft flight international. The 21st of March, 1968. The Lightning possessed a remarkable climb rate. It was famous for its ability to rapidly rotate from takeoff to climb almost vertically from the runway, though this did not yield the best time to altitude. The Lightning's trademark tail-stand maneuver exchanged airspeed for altitude. It could slow to near stall speeds before commencing level flight. The Lightning's optimum climb profile required the use of afterburners during takeoff. Immediately after takeoff, the nose would be lowered for rapid acceleration to 430 knots, 800 kilometers per hour, 490 miles per hour, IAS before initiating a climb, stabilizing at 450 knots, 830 kilometers per hour, 520 miles per hour. This would yield a constant climb rate of approximately 20,000 foot forward/min, 100 m forward/s. Around 13,000 feet, 4,000 m, the Lightning would reach Mach 0.87, 1,009 kilometers per hour, 627 miles per hour, and maintain this speed until reaching the tropopause, 36,000 feet, 11,000 m, on a standard day. If climbing further, pilots would accelerate to supersonic speed at the tropopause before resuming the climb. A Lightning flying at optimum climb profile would reach 36,000 feet, 11,000 m, in under 3 minutes. Lightning in flight at the Easter Plate Air Show, Cape Town, September 2006. The official ceiling of the Lightning was kept secret. Low security IAF documents often stated in excess of 60,000 feet, 18,000 m. In September 1962, RAF Fighter Command organized interception trials on Lockheed U-2s at heights of around 60,000, 65,000 foot, 18,000, 20,000 m, which were temporarily based at RAF Upper Hayford to monitor Soviet nuclear tests. Climb techniques and flight profiles were developed to put the Lightning into a suitable attack position. To avoid risking the U-2, the Lightning was not permitted any closer than 5,000 feet, 1,500 m, and could not fly in front of the U-2. For the intercepts, 4 Lightning F-1s conducted 18 solo sorties. The sorties proved that, under GCI, successful intercepts could be made at up to 65,000 feet, 20,000 m. Due to sensitivity, details of these flights were deliberately avoided in the pilot logbooks. In 1984, during a NATO exercise, Flight Lieutenant Mike Hale intercepted a U-2 at a height which they had previously considered safe, thought to be 66,000 feet, 20,000 m. Records show that Hale also climbed to 88,000 feet, 27,000 m, in his Lightning F.3 XR749. This was not sustained level flight but a ballistic climb, in which the pilot takes the aircraft to top speed and then puts the aircraft into a climb, exchanging speed for altitude. Hale also participated in time-to-height and acceleration trials against Lockheed F-104 starfighters from Aalborg. He reports that the Lightnings won all races easily with the exception of the low-level supersonic acceleration, which was a dead heat. Lightning pilot and chief examiner Brian Carroll reported taking a Lightning F.53 up to 87,300 feet, 26,600 m, over Saudi Arabia, at which level Earth curvature was visible and the sky was quite dark, noting that the engines were touchy in terms of staying lit in the thin air, and getting down to a more reasonable and sane altitude needed delicate handling. Carroll compared the Lightning and the McDonnell Douglas F-15C Eagle, having flown both aircraft, stating that acceleration in both was impressive. You have all seen the Lightning leap away once brakes are released. The Eagle was almost as good, and climb speed was rapidly achieved. Takeoff roll is between 2,000 and 3,000 feet, 610 and 910 m, depending upon military or maximum afterburner powered takeoff. The Lightning was quicker off the ground, reaching 50 feet, 15 m, height in a horizontal distance of 1,630 feet, 500 m. Chief test pilot for the Lightning Roland Beaumont, who also flew most of the Century Series U.S. aircraft, stated his opinion that nothing at that time had the inherent stability, control, and docile handling characteristics of the Lightning throughout the full flight envelope. The turn performance and buffet boundaries of the Lightning were well in advance of anything known to him. Aircraft performance, edit. Early Lightning models, the F.1, F.10, and F.2, had a maximum speed of Mach 1.7, 1,815 km per hour, 1,128 miles per hour, at 36,000 feet, 11,000 m, in an ICAO standard atmosphere, and 650 knots, 1,200 km per hour, 750 miles per hour, IAS at lower altitudes. Later models, the F.20, F.3, F.30, F.6, and F.53, had a maximum speed of Mach 2.0, 2,136 km per hour, 1,327 miles per hour, at 36,000 feet, 11,000 m, and speeds up to 700 knots, 1,300 km per hour, 810 miles per hour, indicated airspeed for operational necessity only. A Lightning fitted with Avon 200 series engines, a ventral tank, and 2 Firestreak missiles had a maximum speed of Mach 1.9, 2,328 km per hour, 1,446 miles per hour, on a standard day, while a Lightning powered by the Avon 300 series engines, a ventral tank and 2 Red Top missiles had a maximum speed of Mach 2.0. Directional stability decreased as speed increased, with vertical fin failure likely if yaw was not correctly counteracted with rudder deflections. Imposed Mach limits during missile launches ensured adequate directional stability. Later Lightning variants had a larger vertical fin, giving a greater stability margin at high speed. It was not known whether the fixed center body intake, with a design point of Mach 1.7, would encounter intake buzz, a vibration caused by oscillation of the shock positions at different combinations of Mach number and engine airflow /RPM. A Lightning prototype was taken to Mach 2.0, 2,450 km per hour, 1,522 miles per hour, to check for this instability, but none was found. Service trials with the F.6 found intake buzz when engine speed was rapidly reduced at speeds above Mach 1.85, 2,266 km per hour, 1,408 miles per hour, as well as when maneuvering, increased G, at other supersonic speeds and engine thrust settings. The buzz caused no damage. Thermal and structural limits were also present. Air is heated considerably when compressed by the passage of an aircraft at supersonic speeds. The airframe absorbs heat from the surrounding air, the inlet shock cone at the front of the aircraft becoming the hottest part. The shock cone was fiberglass, necessary because the shock cone also served as a radar radome. A metal shock cone would have blocked the AI-23's radar emissions. The shock cone was eventually weakened due to the fatigue caused by the thermal cycles involved in regularly performing high-speed flights. At 36,000 feet, 11,000 m, and Mach 1.7, 1,815 km per hour, 1,128 miles per hour, the heating conditions on the shock cone were similar to those at sea level and 650 knots. 1,200 km per hour, 750 miles per hour, indicated airspeed, but if the speed was increased to Mach 2.0, 2,136 km per hour, 1,327 miles per hour, at 36,000 feet, 11,000 m, The shock cone was exposed to higher temperatures than those at Mach 1.7. The shock cone was strengthened on the later Lightning F.20, F.3, F.6, and F.53 models, thus allowing routine operation at up to Mach 2.0. The small fin variants could exceed Mach 1.7, but the stability limits and shock cone thermal and strength limits made such speeds risky. The large fin variants, especially those equipped with Avon 300 series engines, could safely reach Mach 2 and, given the right atmospheric conditions, might even achieve a few more tenths of a Mach. All Lightning variants had the excess thrust to slightly exceed 700 knots, 1,300 km per hour, 810 miles per hour, indicated airspeed under certain conditions, and the service limit of 650 knots, 1,200 km per hour, 750 miles per hour, was occasionally ignored. With the strengthened shock cone, the Lightning could safely approach its thrust limit, but fuel consumption at very high air speeds was excessive and became a major limiting factor. Handling characteristics, edit. The Lightning was fully aerobatic. Operational history, edit. Royal Air Force, edit. The first aircraft to enter service with the RAF, 3 pre-production P.1Bs, arrived at RAF Coltisha in Norfolk on the 23rd of December, 1959, joining the Air Fighting Development Squadron, AFDS, of the Central Fighter Establishment, where they were used to clear the Lightning for entry into service. The production Lightning F.1 entered service with the AFDS in May 1960, allowing the unit to take part in the Air Defense Exercise Yeoman later that month. The Lightning F.1 entered frontline squadron service with 74 Squadron under the command of Squadron Leader John "Johnny" Howe at Coltisha from the 11th of July 1960. This made the Lightning the second Western European-built combat aircraft with true supersonic capability to enter service and the second fully supersonic aircraft to be deployed in Western Europe, the first one in both categories being the Swedish Saab 35 Draken on the 8th of March 1964, months earlier. The aircraft's radar and missiles proved to be effective and pilots reported that the Lightning was easy to fly. However, in the first few months of operation the aircraft's serviceability was extremely poor. This was due to the complexity of the aircraft systems and shortages of spares and ground support equipment. Even when the Lightning was not grounded by technical faults, the RAF initially struggled to get more than 20 flying hours per aircraft per month compared with the 40 flying hours that English Electric believed could be achieved with proper support. In spite of these concerns, within 6 months of the Lightning entering service, 74 Squadron was able to achieve 100 flying hours per aircraft. In addition to its training and operational roles, 74 Squadron was appointed as the official Fighter Command aerobatic team for 1961, flying at air shows throughout the United Kingdom and Europe. Deliveries of the slightly improved Lightning F.10, with improved avionics and provision for an air-to-air refueling probe, allowed 2 more squadrons, 56 and 111 Squadron, both based at RAF Wattisham in Suffolk, to convert to the Lightning in 1960-1961. The Lightning F.1 would only be ordered in limited numbers and serve for a short time. Nonetheless, it was viewed as a significant step forward in Britain's air defence capabilities. Following their replacement from frontline duties by the introduction of successively improved variants of the Lightning, the remaining F.1 aircraft were employed by the Lightning Conversion Squadron. 9 Lightning F.1s of number 74 Squadron display at the 1961's Back Show, Farnborough. An improved variant, The F.2 first flew on the 11th of July 1961 and entered service with 19 Squadron at the end of 1962 and 92 Squadron in early 1963. Conversion of these two squadrons was aided by the use of the two-seat T.4 trainer, which entered service with the Lightning Conversion Squadron, later renamed 226 Operational Conversion Unit, in June 1962. While the OCU was the major user of the two-seater, small numbers were also allocated to the frontline fighter squadrons. More F.2s were produced than there were available squadron slots, so later production aircraft were stored for years before being used operationally. Some Lightning F.2s were converted to F.2s. They had some of the improvements added to the F.6. The F.3, with more powerful engines and the new Red Top missile, but no cannon, was expected to be the definitive Lightning, and at one time it was planned to equip 10 squadrons, with the remaining 2 squadrons retaining the F.2. On the 16th of June, 1962, the F.3 flew for the first time. It had a short operational life and was withdrawn from service early due to defense cutbacks and the introduction of the F.6, some of which were converted F.3s. The Lightning F.6 was a more capable and longer-range version of the F.3. It initially had no cannon, but installable gun packs were made available later. A few F.3s were upgraded to F.6s. Author Kev Darling suggests that decreasing British overseas defence commitments had led to those aircraft instead being prematurely withdrawn. The introduction of the F.3 and F.6 allowed the RAF to progressively re-equip squadrons operating aircraft such as the Gloucester Javelin and retire these types during the mid-1960s. A Lightning was tasked with shooting down a pilotless Hawker Siddeley Harrier over West Germany in 1972. The pilot had abandoned the Harrier, which continued flying toward the East German border. It was shot down to avoid a diplomatic incident. During British Airways trials in April 1985, Concorde was offered as a target to NATO fighters including F-15 Eagles, F-16 Fighting Falcons, Grumman F-14 Tomcats, Dassault Mirages, and F-104 starfighters, but only Lightning XR-749, flown by Mike Hale and described by him as a very hot ship, even for a Lightning, managed to overtake Concorde on a stern conversion intercept. During the 1960s, as strategic awareness increased and a multitude of alternative fighter designs were developed by Warsaw Pact and NATO members, the Lightning's range and firepower shortcomings became increasingly apparent. The transfer of McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom IIS from Royal Navy service enabled these much longer-ranged aircraft to be added to the RAF's interceptor force alongside those withdrawn from Germany, as they were replaced by Seapicat Jaguars in the ground attack role. The Lightning's direct replacement was the Panavia Tornado F-3, an interceptor variant of the Panavia Tornado multi-role aircraft. The Tornado featured several advantages over the Lightning, including a far larger weapons load and considerably more advanced avionics. Lightnings were slowly phased out of service between 1974 and 1988. In their final years, the airframes required considerable maintenance to keep them airworthy due to the sheer number of accumulated flight hours. The last flight by RAF Lightnings was on the 30th of June, 1988, with 2 aircraft flying to Cranfield Airport from RAF Beinbrook. Fighter Command and Strike Command, edit. The main Lightning role was the air defense of the United Kingdom and was operated at first as part of Fighter Command and then from 1968 with number 11 Group of Strike Command. At the formation of Strike Command, 9 Lightning squadrons were operational in the United Kingdom. Far East Air Force, edit. In 1967, No. 74 Squadron was moved to IF Tenga, Singapore to take over the air defense role from the Gloucester Javelin-equipped 60 Squadron. The squadron was disbanded in 1971 following the withdrawal of British forces from Singapore. Near East Air Force, edit. The Royal Air Force had detached Lightnings to IF Akrotiri, Cyprus to support the Near East Air Force, and in 1967 No. 56 Squadron IF moved from IF Wattisham with the Lightning F.3 to provide a permanent air defense force. It converted to the F.6 in